Oh, so far away, Lucas. What are we talking about today?
We're talking about the Flash being an angry car.
Yes, the fastest man alive, except when he's not. The Flash TV show is part of an expansive and, some would say, ambitious TV multiverse where the Scarlet Speedster hangs out and solves crimes with his collection of super friends. A character defined by his speed, as you might imagine, editing the show was quite difficult until the sound designer decided to start treating the Flash like an angry sports car. And Lucas, I don't think we need to explain that, do we? We might have to a bit.
Yeah, maybe a little bit.
First things first, Lucas, what's your relationship with the Flash TV show? Did you watch it? Do you watch it? Because I think it's still ongoing now. It'll never end.
Oh my god. Yeah, this is the problem. It's like, I watched Arrow and the Flash for the first couple of seasons.
Yep.
Quality started going downhill. They started spinning off into so many shows that it was impossible to keep up with.
Yep. And for me, when the show started going off the rails, that's when I started to respect it a little bit more, because at least it showed that DC were willing to do something interesting with the characters. And all that culminated in that literal multiverse spanning event they had, where they brought in all the CW actors and then a bunch of people who played DC characters in the past, like Tom Welling, who played Clark Kent in the Smallville show. And they even acknowledged the fact that Brandon Routh has played two characters in the DC canon. So they have him playing the Atom, and then they brought him back as Superman as well.
Oh man, that's cool.
Yeah, and then they have like Kevin Conroy as the voice of Batman, playing an alternate version of Batman. And it's like, that's amazing. That's really cool. The fact they're acknowledging and showing like reverence to these people who've helped build up this pantheon of characters in people's minds. Because to a lot of people, like Tom Welling is Superman, because that's the Superman they grew up with. So you know what? He gets his moment. Those shows don't exactly have the budget to realise the ambition they have, but I respect them nonetheless for it. And in regards to the Flash TV show, I love the actor playing the Flash, Grant Gustin. Ever since he was in Glee. I love him in Glee, and I love that they have that crossover episode with Supergirl, where Melissa Benoist, where she can also sing really well, so they have like a musical episode those two get to sing. It's like stuff like that, it's just fun. I love that. Bringing it back to the sound of the Flash TV show, it was understandably very difficult to edit around a character who moves that fast, because in the original comic books and eventually the show, the Flash is moving so quickly that it is beyond the limits of human comprehension, which begs the question, how do you make a sound for something that has no real-world parallel? Like, what sound does a man's ball sack make when it, breaks the sound barrier for the 13th time?
Oh, Karl.
And an aspect of production in near enough all live-action media is sound design, and it's so often overlooked unless it's bad. And it's a fact I've mentioned before, but I'm mentioning it for people who don't know, but near enough every sound you hear in a piece of live-action media is added after the fact. The only thing they record on the day is the voices. Everything else is added later. And when you put it like that, it sounds ridiculous, doesn't it? Like everything from like the sound of like a bottle being put on a table to the rustling of clothes, someone running their hands through their hair, flicking a light switch, it all has to be added after the fact. And not only do you have to put those sounds in, but then in something like The Flash, you also have to create new sounds for stuff like him running really fast.
It's weird when you take a comic book character like that, because, if you're just watching like the Justice League Unlimited animated show, you can just have like a whooshing noise, but it doesn't work very well when that's in live action.
Yes, and that's something the sound editor for the show, Mark Camperell, noted, because he says, he's a comic book character, and comic books are an inherently elevated version of reality due to the subject matter they contain. And in a Flash comic book, you can have just like the words zoom written on the page, he runs real fast. You can't do that in a live action setting because it'd come across as, in his own words, corny or unrealistic. And it seems silly to use the descriptor unrealistic in relation to a guy who can run at the speed of light, but we're using the descriptor realistic in regards to the universe the show has built up. Bringing it back to Camperell, he specifically wanted to avoid more cartoonish and cliche sounds when showcasing the Flash's speed. So you're not going to get like the generic whoosh sound or anything like that. He didn't want to do that because it's too cliche, it's too corny. And he had to create a soundboard of new sounds he created when demonstrating the character's speed. And Lucas, would you like to hazard a guess at what sounds were combined to suggest speed?
Well, I mean, the article would suggest maybe it's like a bunch of cars being very angry.
It wasn't cars, no, it was the sound of things like jet planes, the sound of thunder and lightning, and the sound of fire. So they're all like natural sounds that people associate with speed, and you combine them all together to create a new, unique sound, which is a very common thing in sound design, isn't it? It's like, I think like monster noises are the most common example of that, just combining a bunch of animal roars and changing like the octaves and the tempos and melding, like playing them backwards, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
Because human beings are naturally predisposed to not like the sound of things like lions roaring. So when you combine a lion with a tiger, with a bear, and then play it backwards at like, you know, a volume that it's not supposed to, and then reverberate that around a room and record that sound, it just, yeah. And Camperell did the same thing with sounds that evoke the feeling of speed. You know, like fire, lightning, jet planes, car engines, that sort of thing. And in regard to the angry motor car you're probably all wondering about from the title, when it came to editing the Flash, that's where the angry car came in, because he saw the Flash as not being like a man running very fast. If you were going to edit a scene and put sound design on a scene of a guy running very fast, it'd be very different to what the Flash looks like. So the Flash is so much faster than a regular human, it doesn't make sense to edit it that way. Lucas, do you want to guess what he decided to edit the Flash like?
I'm presuming it's an angry car.
Yes, like a car chase.
Oh, okay, yeah.
So he edited scenes of the Flash moving like he would a car chase and started filtering in noises that would evoke the feeling of a car chase in your mind, such as the sound of skids and slides and brakes being put on and things like that. Because in his head, he imagined that when the Flash is running at full speed, it would be akin to an angry sports car at full speed.
Oh, does like the Flash ever do the Akira Slide in that show?
I would be surprised if he doesn't, because like, if people don't know the Akira Slide, here's the Akira Slide. And that is probably the most homaged and or ripped off shot from anything, I'd imagine.
Well, it's definitely up there, but that's because it looks so goddamn good.
Yeah, I can't think of a shot that is more ripped off than that one.
Until you realise that it's a trope that people are pulling from, you just think like, oh yeah, that's a cool action shot. It's like, no, it's always the Akira Slide.
Yeah, and to the point where people presumably watching Akira are not familiar with it, like, oh, it's that thing. It's like, no, that's where it comes from. That's where that thing comes from. Bringing it back to the Flash and him being like an angry sports car, that's how Camperell envisioned him, and that's how he decided to edit scenes. And there's just something very amusing to me about the idea that in Camperell's mind, editing scenes with the Flash running in were like editing a scene from Tokyo Drift. And can the person who edits this video please just now take a scene from the Flash of him running after a villain of the week and just put in the Tokyo Drift soundtrack over the top to see how good it sounds.
I thought you were going to say, like, make him look like a car, but then it's just Lightning McQueen, isn't it?
And that's obviously where that design comes from, isn't it? It's very evocative of the Flash's colour scheme. Because as we all know, red things move faster. Because like, whenever I play like a racing game, I always get the red car, because red cars are faster. There's a reason it's called Go Faster Stripes there. But Lucas, do you have a particular favourite speedster or speed moment from a piece of media? Because there's a couple I'd like to mention. Just right off the bat, we're not going to talk about the Quicksilver scene, because I think that's the gold standard.
Yes, yeah, of course, yeah.
Right, the gold, and as well, they play licensed music during that, so we're not going to put a clip in of it. And I'm going to give my shout-outs to The Incredibles, where Dash gets told to run as fast as he can, and starts running on water, and he's like, wait, what?
Yeah.
Because he doesn't realise. Because he has no idea what his own limits are, because he's never been able to test them. And it's like that part where he's having like the fist fight with that soldier, and he realises that he can just dodge everything because he sees everything so quickly. His reaction time is like so far beyond a human, and he's just like, wait, what? And he just dodges it and then punches him like 50 million times in the face.
But then he realises like, oh, I'm a small child punching this fully grown man. Each punch isn't doing very much.
Yeah, and then he has to run away. We just have that great moment though, where Violet jumps in front and forms the orb, and they just become the pain sphere. It's like, well, time to cause some havoc.
That's such a good combo.
It really is unstoppable. It's like a droideca.
Yeah, basically.
The most unstoppable thing in all of Star Wars, and I never understood why they don't just make a million of them. Do you have a favourite speed moment from a piece of media, Lucas?
I want to give a shout out to the movie Eternals for like Makari's speedster ability looks really well done.
Mm-hmm.
it's one of those things, I think we mentioned this a while ago, of like, it's really hard to make a character actually like fast on screen and not slow everyone else around them down instead.
Yeah, that's the problem. It's the Flash breaks every show he's in. Because if you can move at basically infinite speed, you have infinite reaction time, which means no matter how strong the opponent you're fighting is, they'll never land a hit on you. And it's why shows like that, where the Flash by design has to keep introducing characters with the same abilities as his, because anyone else would not stand a chance.
It's such a broken power that the only people that can realistically do anything against him are the people with the same broken power.
Which makes the show quite boring after like the 4th season, when who's the villain? Another character who runs slightly faster than you do. It's like, okay.
Or Karl, just guy with a cold gun.
To be fair, though, the cold gun is pretty good because he's played by Wentworth Miller.
Yeah.
And Wentworth Miller owns the role. And then when they brought in, I think it's like Firebug or something like that, they get Dominic Purcell to play. So it's like a Prison Break reunion.
Yeah.
And I did love seeing those two on screen interacting again.
Told you it would break.
And the shrink says I'm crazy.
You could tell they were having so much fun with it.
Well, that's the thing, like the later seasons of that show. Like Brandon Routh, you can tell he's having so much fun in that show.
Mm-hmm.
When he's playing like the Atom, because he loved being Superman. Like he loved being Superman so much, and the movie didn't do very well that he was in, so he never got brought in to do another one. And you could see like he's so happy to be Superman again in that crossover.
First, stay and face Luthor. Then you won't do it alone.
And who wouldn't be like happy to be the most famous superhero in the world? Like who doesn't want to be Superman?
I mean, I could tell you one person that doesn't want to be one of the most famous heroes.
Like, can we talk about how they have, in like Zack Snyder's Justice League, they rip off the Quicksilver scene and make it worse. Like, they just do the Quicksilver scene again, but they have a moment where it's like the Flash is playing with hot dogs.
Did I dream you dreamed about me?
It looks cool until you realise it's just the Quicksilver scene but worse, because the Quicksilver scene is so much better done.
It probably looks worse than like what they did in the Sonic movie as well.
Man. At least the Sonic movie, it makes sense. It's just that thing of like, you can tell that Zack Snyder's salty that every other superhero media is like received better than his. So he's like, I'm going to put everything in.
That's why it's 4 hours long.
And I'm going to put it in 4:3 because fuck you. Did you ever hear the explanation for that? It's so funny.
Isn't it because like that's what the aspect ratio for IMAX is, or close to?
It's close to, yeah. So Zack Snyder's reasoning for putting the Justice League movie in 4:3 is because IMAX is closer to 4:3, and IMAX is more cinematic. So Zack Snyder's movie is very cinematic, so it has to be the most cinematic. So it has to be in the aspect ratio closest to IMAX, even though it was being exclusively released on streaming services on people's TV. And that just showcases why Zack Snyder is a fucking moron, because IMAX is that shape because the screen is so massive it envelops your entire field of view. That's why you don't notice it's a big square. Something you'd expect someone making movies to know. The center of an IMAX screen is curved because it's like if it was like a flat screen being projected to it, the screen itself is so massive that it would look wrong to your eyes, so they have to correct it in via the use of the screen.
Mm-hmm.
And that's one of the justifications they use for curved TVs. Like, well, curved TVs are more cinematic because that's what IMAX screens like. But IMAX screens are curved for a reason. And I think that just sums up like Snyder's approach to making films. Like, he knows this thing is more cinematic, but he doesn't know why. And then he tried to argue as well, like, well, comic books are inherently vertical medium.
Oh, fuck off.
Because comic books come as like A4 and you read one page and they're more vertical. It's like, yeah, but movies are a horizontal medium.
We're not watching a comic book.
No, you're not. You're watching a fucking movie. One last thing, if anyone's curious about why the Flash runs like he shit himself in Zack Snyder movies, because he runs in a very strange way, where he like doesn't run properly. He like jumps from side to side in a very strange way. And the reasoning for that is because Zack Snyder reasoned that the Flash running so fast would have no friction, because he's moving so quickly with no friction below his feet, and therefore it makes more sense for him not to run, but to move like a speed skater. So rather than having run, he skates across the world. And that just looks so much shitter, because it means that the Flash is constantly crouched over like he's pooping himself. Like, he's basically Naruto running in a worse way.
I'd be less mad if the Flash just straight up Naruto ran everywhere.
That'd be like, we all know that makes you faster.